Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast. I'm your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, in some capacity or another, is
Yeah.
Mike, the Cranky Fan. And we made it. This is it. This is the final game preview of the 2024 season. Mercifully, it is coming to an end. And the Giants are headed to the Link to take on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, we're taking on a group of players wearing Eagle uniforms. I don't know if it's really the Eagles, but yeah, it's a tradition like no other, Grump. At the end of the year, I get sick, my voice gets shot, and I sound like a Muppet. So I apologize in advance. Happy New Year, buddy.
Yeah, Happy New Year. This is the first time we've spoken since the new year.
Yeah.
Um, so, this game, Philadelphia has already announced that they are resting a huge amount of their starters. Saquon Barkley, I suppose, will not get the regular season record. He would need over 100 yards to claim the rushing record.
Yeah.
It looks like they're sitting him. Do you anticipate like a game day switch?
No, because traditionally I always ridicule the Eagles for acting as if the trolling of the Giants is more important than anything else, but it's really in their best interest on many levels to do exactly what they're doing. And I actually kind of applaud them for doing it because I would do the same thing. I mean, you want to be healthy for the playoffs. You don't want the Giants to to lose necessarily because they're going to be in your division. And, if we somehow still get, a potential Cam Ward or Sanders, whoever, you want the likelihood of having that guy, another good quarterback in your division again. So there's a two-pronged reason why they're doing what they're doing. And if I was them, I would do the exact same thing.
They're the 2 seed, right?
Right now, they are the 2 seed. Yes.
So that means they have a bye week.
They do they?
I so I mean I guess my question is
They do not have the bye week
they
yet.
don't have so it's
I don't
only
think
the
they get.
first seed.
Yeah, I don't think they can get it either.
No, okay. Then
Yeah.
I guess that ruins my question. I was just going to ask if them sitting essentially for 2 weeks would worry you, but
I Here's my philosophy, and we were just discussing this, talking about the college football playoff. Is you can't lose a game you don't play, and in the playoffs, playoff teams are pretty closely bunched, and I always fear losing. And to me, the easiest way to win is to play the least amount of games. So, you know, rust, we're talking about 1 week off. We're not talking about being off for 5 weeks, like between the regular season in college and the bowls or
well
the
that's
playoff.
if you get the bye, but if you rest your starters and get the bye,
Yeah,
now
but
you're
they're
not
also
talking about 5 days anymore. You're talking
yeah, but
about
they're also practicing during the week. It's not like they're going to Tahiti for doing nothing.
I'm with you.
So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
I want the bye week. I want people to get healthy. And
that
I,
that
I, I
that
also
too.
think that the best teams that are focused and are well coached are paying attention. I don't think you get boat trips and
Yeah,
under Tom Coughlin. So
and also I have to give respect to Barkley.
mhm.
I think he's been a little bit unfairly booed and mercifully destroyed in this town where
No, I think
he's
the booing is fair. Anyone taking it any more than just a money grab, I think is
yeah, but I mean, this is something where this is not a money grab. This is I'm going to play in a relatively meaningless game just to get a record that already is watered down probably for the fifth time because the league schedule has gone from 10 games to 12 to 14 to 16 to 17.
mhm.
So it's not the same as when OJ broke the record. It's not the same when Eric Dickerson broke the record. It's more diluted. So you could go after the paper title, and I think that's you know, it's a little bit kind of ties into what I was saying last week about with league neighbors, like, you know, being excited about these things. It's like, Barkley's a professional. He's a veteran and he knows there's bigger pictures and he could certainly play and try to get the record and have it, but he's not. So in that way, I do give him respect for that.
Yeah, I would agree, and I also agree that this is the smart move for Philadelphia. Um, so Yeah. On the flip side, the Giants have some guys who are probably not going to play. I don't think Micah McFadden or John Michael Schmitz or Evan Neal or Armon Watts tore his knee. He's getting surgery. But the
Right.
other three just did not practice. I think that none of them will play.
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty ambitious if Brian Burns played, who was limited this week, and just given his star power and the length of the contract that he's here with, signed through 2028, it would be ambitious to expect him to play. But I do expect Kayvon Thibodeau to play, even though just because he practiced fully. Um, I don't know. Any thoughts on any of that?
I mean, again, Brian Burns is a guy that's going to be here for a while. He is not endangered of being cut or not being part of next year or potential next regime or anything. It's in his best interest to get ready for the offseason so he can be 100% healthy to do his offseason regimen, whatever that is, whatever works for him. So I have no problem with anybody. And again, I'm on Camp Tank, so
Yeah, sure.
I'd rather have people from Section 124, Row 32 going out and playing a snapper series. So
um, so I guess if it's basically just Giants players that are second and third string and Eagles players that are second and third string, why are we watching? What are you watching for?
yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, I'm you know I've been thinking about this. It's like, well, somebody, my one friend, she was just like, why are you happy they won? And we went through the whole thing. You all know what I'm going to say, but it's like, you know, if you can't enjoy even a win at any time, what's the point? And I was like, well, there has to be a point to any of this as opposed to just shutting off the TV and not watching again until next September. So there actually is some things you're looking at. And I think, to me, I think it goes back to what you said last episode where Brian Dable is. How is he going to coach? How do you coach a game like this? Are we going to treat this as a complete tank, or are we going to actually be a little more aggressive than we normally are, or are we going to coach to win? So I'm really looking at coaching in this, not under the lens of keep him or fire him. I just want to see how Brian Dable coaches in a situation that is relatively meaningless.
Um,
Because I think the problem is, I think everybody's looking at every little move. If he scratches his ass 3 times, well, that means we should keep him or we should fire him. I, you know, I think everything is not one decision or one data point. It's over many things over now 3 years. I don't think anything that happens tomorrow is going to change any opinion. But I want to see a coach that, you know, if we are trying to win, going back on my conspiracy theory for last week, are we going to try to coach to win? I think we're going to know in the first 10 minutes how are we going to prepare. How are we game playing this game? Are we game playing this game to try to win like we did last week clearly, or are we back in tank mode again?
well, see, this is what's interesting to me is I don't think you can look at any coaching moment this year and say that it was coached not to win. And I just
Yeah.
think that's kind of how tanking is. Like, you know, Dan Duggan made this point in his last, and I want to get to Brian Dable specifically in a little bit here, but Dan Duggan wrote a whole piece on how Dable's post game presser was a lot more elaborative than usual. He is kind of famously very short and dull post game and not revealing. So, but we'll get to that in a second. But in there, he had a thing about like their effort to win that should dispel any notions of there being a tank. And I just don't agree with that. I just don't think that's where a tank happens. I think if you go through history, you won't find many examples of coaches tanking. Players don't tank. Players might quit in that their heart's not in it, and you can kind of see the hustle
Right.
disappear. But they
Right.
don't. They have a job beyond the team. You know what I mean? The GM's job is the team. The player's job is to play. So they go out there and they play their hardest. Drew Lock throwing for 300 yards does not surprise me against the Colts. You know what I mean? I wonder like do you expect like, you know, 3 limp dick like run attempts and a punt? Like is that something that you could foresee happening?
No, I don't think you tank by coaching that way. I mean, I think there are key decision points in a game, whether it's going for it on fourth down as opposed to punting. Things like that, I think, are more subtle ways to when you're actually not coaching to win. I mean, just running it up 3 times or taking 3 quarterback sneaks and doing ridiculous stuff. You can't do that. I mean, that's when the league gets on your ass. But again, I think it's a lot of, like I said last time, Tommy DeVito was supposed to be playing these games to evaluate him. The evaluation lasted until he got hurt, and then we're done. I mean, Drew Lock, none of us like Drew Lock. None of us think he'll be back next year, but Drew Lock's still better than Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah.
And that gives you a better chance to win. If you play Tommy DeVito the rest of the way out, that's not, just throwing the ball up for grabs so the other team intercept it, but it's also decreasing your chance to win. It's also what goes on during the week in practice. Are you implementing a game plan to specifically stop somebody, or are you just kind of preparing as you would in a preseason game? Just vanilla defense, and that's that. There's subtle things you can do.
But sure, but how the hell would you or I know anything about that? The practice and game planning.
Well, I thought the question was, how do coaches?
Well, they could, yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
I mean, but you said it's something you're going to be looking for is how he coaches this game. If that's one example of how he could be coaching to
Well, that I can't.
how the hell
well,
would
that
you
I-
know? Yeah.
Well, that I can't tell.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, we'll see things like, okay, it's 4th and 2,
But
on.
see, like even that is like I don't disagree with you, like risk taking and things like that, but I don't really know, like if you do a fake punt with some razzle dazzle play, is that closer to tanking or not? You know what I mean? Like that's almost seems silly, like you're waiting for a mistake to happen.
Yeah,
Like that's
I
like
don't know.
bowl game shit.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was kind of wondering. Are we going to treat this like a bowl game and just kind of
Okay, all right.
say
I could see
fuck it, just let's just do silly stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
And again, if they're really committed to the tank, I don't think you're going to see any of that silliness. I think you're just going to see ultra conservative. Not. It could be 3 or 4 decisions in a game that make the difference between potentially winning or losing. You're not going to see, 5 defensive linemen being told to lay down so a guy runs or something.
Yeah, I think we'll see more from. I mean,
But my opinion,
Brian Dable's been like kind of inconsistent with his 4th down decision making too, so it makes it kind of difficult to tell if
That's
he's
exactly-
being more or less conservative.
that's right. That's very true. See, my stance about coaching tanking has changed, has evolved. My thought,
Okay.
because I always said that players never tank, coaches never tank. I think if coaches have assurances they're not getting fired, I certainly think they can capable of tanking. I think if you're on a hot seat and coaches know when they are really on a hot seat versus when the media proclaims they're on a hot seat. I mean, these guys have conversations every single day with their general manager. I'm sure they speak all the time with ownership. And that's the way the Giants are. They know. And again, that's where conspiracy crank comes back into play, where I think they started this tank season with the assurances, and I think Mayer changed his tune. And I think that's so. I think coaches certainly. But if you're somebody like, I don't know, I don't know an example, but like you're going to be back next year. I've already said you're going to be back. Case closed. Well, it's in your best interest to, if you're not going to make the playoffs, move up a couple of draft picks to increase your chances of getting better players. Not guarantee, increase your chances. I certainly think coaches are in on it. That throwing is now that's not throwing games.
No, it's not throwing games, but you're
Yeah.
not. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to Dan Duggan's article, which he was noting how different the post game press conference was from Dable in and around the same time that Joe Judge went on his 11-minute rant, um, which I believe the rumor, the unconfirmed story is that rant happened after he was assured that he would be back next season, and then I guess the rant and the game that preceded it were so bad that Mara changed his mind. But he made that rant partially because of the feeling of safety and I guess making more of a message to ownership than he was answering the question, and that this might be the same sort of thing happening with Dable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, the rant was a non-issue until
Same.
everybody made it an issue. Like, again, but also, I'm the same person who thought the quarterback sneak was a non-issue, and everybody made that into an issue too. But to me, it's just like, who cares what they say in these press conferences? But again, if you have an owner that is that thin-skinned, which we have more and more data points that prove that, you know, what are coaches supposed to do?
Yeah. So we kind of discussed the things that we'd be watching for in this game. I'm still looking at some of the younger players that have decisions to be made coming up, like Kayvon Thibodeau, Dane Belton. I'm interested in these guys. I want to see if Deonte Banks has a comeback game after what might have been the worst game of his entire NFL career. If Trey Hawkins gets some play time, I'd be interested in that. So there's players here and there that I'm watching for, but let's be honest here. I am first and foremost watching to make sure that we don't win this game. Right now, the Giants are picking fourth. Ahead of them are the New England Patriots, who will be playing the Buffalo Bills and who likely don't need a quarterback. So that's like a trade spot. The Tennessee Titans, who are playing the Houston Texans, who will likely need a quarterback.
Back up a second. They're playing Buffalo. Is Buffalo have anything to play for?
No.
Okay, so they're probably going to – is Josh Allen even going to play?
I don't know.
Okay, because that's important.
It sure is.
Yeah, well, we don't know as of – we're taping this on Thursday. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if Buffalo has really announced anything. While I'm kind of talking here, I'll keep looking at it.
Okay.
So following that, Tennessee Titans are playing the Houston Texans. The Titans are definitely quarterback candidates. Will Levis has not panned out, at least not the early returns. Following that, the Cleveland Browns are at the Baltimore Ravens.
I don't think Baltimore has anything to play for either.
Me either, but it's a little hard to imagine Cleveland winning that game anyway. Baltimore is just like a very, very stacked team.
Yeah.
Um.
Well, if they bench everybody like Philly's doing, it's very possible.
You think so?
Sure. Depends on who doesn't play.
Yeah. Immediately behind the Giants, just in case they win, the Jaguars are playing at the Colts. Remember, Trevor Lawrence is out for the year, but that is going to be a brutal, brutal game. Now the Colts officially have no playoff spot to play for, so it's a little hard to imagine how they're going to come out.
Yeah, I mean, they laid such an egg against us last week. Who's to say they really don't lay an egg?
Yeah. Carolina is playing at the Falcons.
Atlanta's got everything to play for.
Yes. The Jets are playing at home against the Dolphins.
Ugh.
Yeah, another one that, that one file under who cares.
I think Dolphin and Jet fans will say the same thing.
Yeah. Raiders are hosting the Chargers. I just don't see any way in hell the Raiders win that game.
Chargers in the playoffs, right?
They are in the playoffs, but they're in the West, so they have to be playing for a wild card spot. I don't imagine they're fucking around.
Are they in, or are they just? I think their seed might be locked. I don't think
it might be, but I don't see them resting a whole roster the way Philly does.
No. I don't think so either.
And Chicago is in Green Bay to play the Packers. Again, Green Bay is probably pretty locked in the wild card spot there, but
yeah.
I don't know. I am a little worried that we might win this game.
Very worried.
It's a little ambitious to say that our backups are, better than their backups. But
Well, something, it's, their backups know they're playing in 2 weeks or next week, and it's different. You kind of put your foot off there. So I don't think it's a question of our backups are better than theirs. I think it's games like this, or it's just who's mentally prepared more than the other. And when you have that safety net of who gives a shit about this game, is that make you more complacent than only 3 hours and I can go on the beach?
well, I don't know, man. Yeah. I see. I view it as like if I'm the second stringer on a team that is definitely playing next week and I'm feeling hot, I think I'm coming out there jazzed, getting my chance to hit somebody behind a team where I don't get a lot of work. Whereas,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you might be coming out there firing all on all cylinders, excited, for the weeks to come, and the ones stepping off the gas may be the ones that know this is their. I know you have a smattering of guys who are like, this is my last chance to make tape. But like, what about Devin Singletary? You think he's really putting his foot on the gas this week? You know what I mean? He's here
yeah,
next year,
yeah, yeah.
so I don't know.
I mean,
Um,
it also comes down to, when you have a bunch of second stringers playing who haven't played much, it increases your chances for the fluke things, the silly turnovers, the procedure penalties, more stuff like that. And that could impact games like this as much as, well, I'm better than you. If we have more starters playing, they may not be better than their backups, but they're more cohesive. That's a possibility.
I'm looking at the Bills injury report,
Yes.
and I don't see anybody on here for rest. But Josh Allen is on there as a full participant as of Wednesday with both a elbow and shoulder injury. So let's just say he doesn't play.
Yeah.
Are the Jets winning?
No.
I'm sorry, the
Not playing the
Patriots.
Patriots winning. No, they're terrible.
Yeah.
It's an interesting decision the Patriots have to make because they have a potentially really good quarterback and they have a really bad coach.
Yeah, it's remarkable too because it seemed like there was such a foregone conclusion as to him being the coach. Like
Yeah.
it was like written in some succession plan bullshit thing.
Yeah.
Like they seemed so sure of that move, and now it's like they might change
Yeah.
course immediately.
You know something? And the good organizations realize that they made a mistake, you move on fast.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know,
So was that? You think that's Mike Vrabel?
it certainly it feels like it. It feels
Yeah.
like a nice fit for him. I mean, if you're a coach looking at all the jobs out there, I mean, with New England looks a lot more attractive to me than the Giants would right now if they launched
Sure.
Dable.
Yeah.
They look a lot more attractive than the Jets do.
Well, they look like freshly ready to build upwards. Like they're not going to
Right.
get much worse from this. You have a potential franchise quarterback, at least to start with, but you don't have to take the blame if he doesn't pan out.
Yeah, and also they have tons of cap space too. I mean, they're in position to, seed that roster. They may not go to the Super Bowl next year, but you can see that trajectory going up really fast with them.
Yeah. I am worried that we're going to win this game and we'll be looking at talking about draft choices all over the map inside the top 10.
I think you just help your cause out by losing, pure and simple. And to all of you, I talked to a lot of people this week, and last week when I was down in Florida, and some friends of mine are season ticket holders that in other places, and I'm glad you had your sugar high from that win last week. I'm glad you were happy, but don't come bitching to me next year when we don't have a quarterback or something, or it's just I just everybody to each his own. We're all fans, and everybody look at something differently, but I'm always a long-term person and I'm a process person, and I can I don't need to have a win to go about my day and be like, fine, everything's fine and dandy. If I'm building for the greater good, that's what I want. So I have no qualms. I'm not a traitor. I am not a fair weather fan. I mean, Jesus Christ, now you know it's in their best interest to lose. I can't say any plain simpler, people. And I know I'm not going to change anybody's opinion. I just want to see a win. I don't care. I mean, I'm happy for you if you're happy, but the easiest way right now for us to potentially get better is to have the best draft pick you can to start. And also, it's not just the first pick in a draft. I want to start at the first pick in the second round, in the third round, in the fourth round, in the fifth round. That goes all the way down the draft. So think about that too.
So, gun to your head, the next time we will talk will be Monday night. So that means
Yes.
Black Monday will have already been upon us. Will we be talking about Brian Dable and Joe Shane both still being Giants employees? Or will we be talking about one not being here? Or will we be talking about neither being here?
I think because they won last week, they will both be here. And that's a ridiculous reason why, but
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why.
I agree. I don't know if that's the reason why, but I don't know. I don't feel it right now that they're gone. Nothing feels right about that to me.
And you know something? I think the Eagles themselves are doing Dable a favor because I think nothing would have chapped Mara's ass more
Hmm.
of all the embarrassments of this year to seeing them stop the game with 5 minutes left in the third quarter after Barkley broke the record and they presented him the ball and they shoved the Liberty Bell up his ass, with all the accolades and stuff, and Mara's sitting in his box choking on a Pat's cheesesteak. I think that scenario not happening, I think, is a data point in Mara's brain right now that might have pushed him over the edge.
Yeah, I think more than I think more than Dable's ass it saves Joe Shane's. But
Well,
again,
I think he would work up the ladder. I don't think he would do a mass. I think the first thing would be scapegoating the coach and then moving on,
yeah.
which makes even less logic than it should. But
Yeah.
but I think that's the way it kind of works with him.
I just don't get the sense that these guys are getting fired.
No.
I don't know. I don't know if it's this like mid-season statement from Mara that he wants to be more patient and doesn't want to clean house again, or you know what I mean, like, because this wasn't a transitionary GM, this wasn't a retread, this was a completely fresh new idea. They cleaned house, quite literally. They completely upgraded facilities. I think Mara was sold on a long timeline, and while this is not where he wanted to be at year 3, nor is it defensible to be here at year 3, I think that he understands that he will at least see this process through to the 5-year contract that they originally signed, and
Yeah.
you know,
I think it's really as simple as if you had the 16th best quarterback in the league as your starting quarterback who was not hurt over these 3 years. I think we have an entirely different conversation right now than we are having. I honestly think it's as simple as that. I'm not saying we're just a quarterback away from being playoff team or Super Bowl contender, blah, 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 like, has been said, but I definitely think we're not talking about these guys getting run and we having to start completely all over again. I think a quarterback means that much that I think we live in a world of alternative facts if we had that. And since they had no part in picking that quarterback, don't give me the thing about re-signing him. They didn't bring him in. I think that changes everything.
Yeah, I agree. Especially since they probably raised to Mara at the time of interview process that there was the possibility that they were going to have a very difficult decision to make on Jones after just 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like we didn't know that was coming up.
And they prepared the contract for such an eventuality too.
Yeah.
They paid him as such, and they had that out in just as such. So,
yeah, which is like I don't think it's likely that they could have gotten a deal done where the out was going to be a year sooner or a buck cheaper than what it is. I think that's they didn't have the leveraging power. They just didn't. Sure, I guess you could just say like, well, they could have just not signed him, I suppose. But they were stuck in a position where they had a lot of success and thought that they could build on it, which was a misevaluation, and that's fine. But they had an out built in that I think if you put in the timetable of what their assurances were upon hiring, that out was, a glass break scenario that they could still remain on the timetable and operate with.
Yeah.
So I think it all kind of makes sense. Whether or not I agree with it is sort of a different story. But we'll even see what the hell happens, because we have a lot to talk about, starting with next Monday and going through the entire playoffs and the entire months of January, February, March, and April, to talk about quarterbacks and if they're even going to be in position to get one is step number one. Which quarterback is worth trying to get is step number two. Do you trade up is step number three. Do you consider... There's so much of that crap that's upcoming.
Who will be making those decisions? That's another thing we don't know at this moment.
So let's just keep it to that. And right now, I predict that they will be the same people, Joe Shane and Brian Dable, Monday night when we're recording. Although our predictions have been horrible this year.
Oh, I think said we'd win. You're right. I said we win 4 to 5 games, and we did worse.
You keep changing your story. If you did your prediction, you said that like once or twice, and then you did a game by game prediction where you wound up with like 7.
Well, remember the game by game prediction was everything considered equal. We didn't factor injuries in that. Some of it was all stuff. So that's pens and pencils is not the same as what I thought we do.
That's a really cute way to cover all your bases.
Said it. I think I said it before every single Pens and Pep episode. We're doing this based on all things considered equal. We couldn't predict injuries. We can't predict any of that stuff.
Yeah. If we came out of here with 8 wins, you'd have been like, I predicted 8 wins.
No, I was Mr. Negative. Remember this offseason? I'm like, this team sucks.
You were, until you predicted 8 wins or 7 wins or whatever.
Okay, well, that's assuming in week 16, Daniel Jones is our quarterback. I didn't predict a tank. I didn't predict a tank.
Well, no, neither of us did.
Right.
I mean, if you had told me that they were going to tank, I probably would have told you we'd win 4 to 5.
I'm actually did we ever really discuss the possibility of using that out, or did we talk about that in the off season at all, or is that something once the season got rolling we kind of
I don't know. We might have, because early on there were so many injury things with him early on. You know what I mean? Like, and he looked like shit throwing the ball in the spring. I won't forget that training camp practice I went to, because I felt like shit that morning. I was like getting sick, and I knew it the night before, and like I went there, hopped up on drugs, and like sniffling boogers back up my nose the whole practice, thinking this practice will cheer me up, and it made me feel worse. I went home at like 1:00 in the afternoon and I went to sleep. That's how fucking shitty the practice was.
Well, remember too, we were talking about in the off season that we'd have to sign a quarterback who would probably get us through the first couple of games till Daniel Jones was ready. The fact that it even started week 1 was kind of a surprise.
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, he was on track to do it, but it was definitely a huge question as whether or not he was gonna start week 1. Yeah. So that's what I think is gonna happen next Monday night when we record. It'll probably still be Brian Dable, Joe Shane, and I guess we'll discuss at that time probably the game and then the merits of that. And the fallout from the results of the game will probably be the topics on that show. And then from then on out, it's just off-season stuff.
Yeah, the end of the Thursday shows. I mean, it's good that we're done with these Thursday shows. This season's horrible, but it's bad that we're not doing Thursday shows in the playoffs. That's
okay. It's going to be a lot of playoff recap and then off-season stuff, and they'll be longer, more organized, and less rambly. So...
yeah.
Isn't that fun?
I'm excited about the playoffs because I really don't know who's going to win it.
Yeah, me either.
No idea. I'm excited about the college playoff. I'm excited about this because I don't know.
And that's
I'm just glad George is out. Fuck him.
All right, everyone. We will see you guys next week. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.